YouTube, Petey Twofinger here with a quick movie review. Actually, it's going to be incredibly long. So, I recommended Lords of Chaos earlier, and I went ahead and watched it. I'm going to just say, I know if I say the Home Alone kid, I know it's not the guy from Home Alone, but I'm still calling him that. When I say Val Kilmer, I know it's not Val Kilmer, I'm still calling him that. I'm going to go ahead and let you know I gave the movie Lords of Chaos a one of that's the review. Huge thumbs down, but a thumbs up. The thumbs down because it's an unbelievably bullshit Hollywood movie that was not a good movie, but the thumb up is because it was laughable. It was laughable to the point where, well, you know what? Also, because it's a rock and roll movie, those are few and far between, especially if we get into the rock horror genre. Which, hey, Bub, I'm looking at you. If you remember that, Bub, that what was it called? Rock and Roll Nightmare. Anyway, with Thor, if you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. So this movie's the black metal story of the beginning of true Norwegian black metal, and they say that a lot. There's a lot of homoerotic headbanging and yelling "Hail Satan." A lot of the lines, the way they're delivered by these guys, just made me laugh out loud because no one would ever say what these guys were saying. I always just assumed that the black metal guys, the originators of this music, that they were like brilliant people that stood for something, and they were like more introspective thinkers. Like if you met one of them, they wouldn't be like underdeveloped, punkish young kids who talked shit all the time. Because that's what the characters, they come off of. They're just dumb, annoying people. Now, from what I had read, and again, okay, you can let me know how wrong I am in the comments. I'm not a black metal expert. I watched When the Light Takes Us right around when it first came out. Okay, it came out, it popped up on my thing. I watched it twice in the first night. And I've watched it, I said in the thread, maybe I watched it 3 times, probably closer to 5 or 6. And after that, I sought out additional black metal documentaries because it was really fascinating to me, and I learned some stuff. Plus, I'm Scandinavian, I'm Swedish. Like, almost 100%. My folks met in Sweden, although they were born in America. Now, this movie, it's laughably bad. It also, I don't know the whole story between these guys. When I watched When the Light Takes Us, I did read interviews and read there's some article that came out in '96. I read a lot about this, and what I walked away with was that Varg, like Euronymous, was a poser, and that he was kind of a embarrassment. And not that Varg was right in what he did, not at all, but just that if you compared the two of them when they were alive, like Varg was legit and this Euronymous was kind of a joke. That he did a lot of stuff that wasn't good, and Varg did a lot of stuff that was good. Then Varg got out of prison and had this YouTube channel, and I was watching that a lot. Now I've been watching him again because this movie's coming out and everyone's watching him again. It's interesting stuff. And he's got a wonderful Swedish accent. He's an intelligent guy who speaks well, so it's fun to watch Varg on video. Now, this movie, there's no shortage of shock. There's animal cruelty, animal corpse. There's a lot of death, self-harm, suicide theme, self-mutilation, and stabbing. This is a stabby, rated S for a lot of stabbing. Any kind of confrontation, solve it by stabbing. That's this movie. And it's extremely light on anything with a guitar, drumsticks, or a microphone. There's a little bit of that, which always helps in a rock and roll movie. Honestly, a better rock movie, Roadie, starring Meatloaf. And I'll leave it at that. Now, I'm sure there's either a bronco riding bull scene or a wet t-shirt or the combination of both in that movie, just to let you know how bad this Lords of Chaos actually is. Now, I wouldn't recommend you skip it if you're like me and you don't necessarily go to the DVD store and plop down your hard-earned $3. If you're finding gray area sites such as 123 Movies to watch these not so new releases, and it doesn't cost you anything, and you're not going to get all bent out of shape because it wasn't true Norwegian black metal, which that should be on the poster. That they say that while looking in the mirror, and all of the Hail Sataning that's going on, and the headbanging with no music. It's very homoerotic. There is a homoerotic scene in it, and that is resolved not through sex but through stabbing. It's like any problem that pops up in this movie, stab it, and stab it a lot, over and over and over and over. Now, they don't have any male nudity in this movie, really. There's a urination scene. It's kind of unnecessary, but there's a few urination scenes, now that I remember that. There's a lot of kind of not erotic sex scenes to prove to you that the one guy is sleeping with a lot of women. So there's a lot of that, like, quick, he's just banging everything that comes around, and oh boy, he's really having his fun, isn't he? So yeah, there's no lack of shock in it. So be aware of that, and so some of it isn't pleasant. There's some creepy stuff. The animal stuff that's not pleasant for me. But I had read about this, and I had always kind of fallen closer onto Varg's side. And in this movie, they paint Euronymous as the victim, as the brilliant Svengali man behind the curtain, who everything he says or suggests to people, they go and do in real life. And then he follows up by saying, well, of course they did that. I told them. So it's like he's just producing, reality as he utters his syllables. And Varg is painted as this oafish poser who's kind of dumb, and then all of a sudden it's like he's real talented, and then it's like he becomes real evil. And there's no arc of character development. The characters are presented, they don't really, there is the arc of the story of the two main characters. That there is an arc for that, but the characters don't, they say often in movies they're flat, where they don't develop or change, and they're just, there they are. That's how this is. It's like there is no black metal, but they're black metal, and they just create it out of thin air, and they're there with their face paint on, and it's ridiculous. The stuff that they're saying, true Norwegian black metal, they say that over and over. Hail Satan constantly with the headbanging and the public urination. So I can't really speak on this because I don't know. Obviously, some people are going to fall on Euronymous' side of the cake. The other people are going to be eating from the table of Varg Vikernes. And this movie does a flip-flop on you, because everything I had read, I had always kind of thought that this Euronymous guy was the poser. He wasn't really that smart, and he ended up dead because he had a plot to murder the other guy, and the other guy beat him to it. And that the other guy had created some wonderful art and was like more legit. Well, this other guy was a goof, and he didn't really produce anything of merit. So in this movie, those roles are reversed, where we have the Home Alone kid being this Svengali genius who you feel really sorry for him, and it takes a long time for him to get stabbed. Stabbing and stabbing and stabbing. That whole thing is like a whole, it's like 2 hours almost, and that whole stabbing thing, they could have really kind of edited that down quite a bit, or moved it and then did a little bit more after. I don't know what they could have done to help this movie. This movie was doomed from the start, and it's surprising me that it took them this long because it's such a famous, and it's a great story. It really is. If you know all the ins and outs to what really went on in that scene, there's even more to it that they didn't touch on. So yeah, it's the type of thing, it comes out and it's like, there's no way in heck I'm not going to watch this movie, even though I'm not a black metal guy, but I love rock and roll and guitar, and like this movie specifically is about this legendary thing that happened. That's an incredible story. And I post to recommend it, like, oh, this movie's out on DVD, you can watch it for free on 123 Movies. And a guy comes in and says, the only good thing is when the light takes us. Like, well, you know, if you love redheads, you're going to watch Gilligan's Island. And yeah, it's a terrible fucking show. It's horrible. They got the robots playing basketball against the Globetrotters. I mean, it's, you know, double thumbs down, but you're still going to watch it if you're home at 3:30 in 1973 and there's nothing else on, is kind of the situation. So I should have explained myself a little better in that I wasn't like, ooh, this Lords of Chaos, it's going to be up for an Oscar. That's my big hot pick, because it isn't. I knew this movie was going to be horrible and laughable, and boy, it did not disappoint. So I got to give this one a which means a huge thumbs down, but a huge thumbs up at the same time, because it's a horrible movie. It's a piece of crap with laughable dialogue, flat, two-dimensional characters. They didn't even come close to telling the truth, and they had a lot of elements in there which they didn't need, meaning the animal abuse stuff and all the shock and the sex scenes, and they didn't have enough actual rock and roll content to fill it out. On the plus side, it's hilariously bad. Macaulay Culkin does a good job as the Home Alone kid, and Val Kilmer.
It wasn't Val Kilmer. I mean, he's another character. He's not Varg.
Val Kilmer did a great job as Varg too. So definitely check that one out, you guys. I'm going to cut you loose. Have a great week.